The rain in Denver was the kind that did not fall so much as drift sideways, soaking through Daniel Hart's jacket. Before he even reached his apartment door, he fumbled with his keys under the yellow porch light, tired down to the bone, the grease from the garage still crusted under his fingernails. His shift had gone long. A delivery truck with a busted transmission had eaten up most of the evening, and the new kid at the shop had panicked halfway through a clutch job. So Daniel had stayed late to fix it himself. All he wanted now was a shower, a cold sandwich, and 8 hours of silence. He got none of those things. The moment he stepped inside and kicked his boots off by the door, he heard it. A faint scratching sound, so soft he thought at first it was his imagination. He froze in the hallway, one sock half pulled off, and listened. There it was. Again, a dry scraping noise coming from the back of the apartment, from his bedroom. Daniel sighed. He had lived in this building for 6 years, and every winter brought a new round of rats in the walls. He grabbed the flashlight from the kitchen drawer, checked the batteries, and walked down the narrow hallway in his socks. The bedroom door was slightly open. He did not remember leaving it that way. He pushed it wide. The room looked untouched. His unmade bed, the crooked lamp, the pile of laundry in the corner. Nothing seemed wrong, but the scratching was louder now, coming from under the bed. Daniel dropped to one knee and clicked the flashlight on, expecting to see a gray tail disappearing into a hole in the wall. What he saw instead made him forget how to breathe. A creature was curled on top of his old work boot. It was no bigger than his palm. Its scales were the color of polished silver, each one catching the flashlight beam like a tiny mirror. Small folded wings lay flat against its back. Its tail, thin and whip-like, was wrapped tight around its own body, and its eyes were the worst part. 2 perfect circles of molten gold, watching him without blinking. Daniel did not move. He did not speak. He had read enough strange news in his life to know that small things with gold eyes were usually not a good sign, but the creature did not lunge. It did not hiss. It simply shivered, pressed itself deeper into the shadows under the bed frame, and let out the softest, saddest sound Daniel had ever heard, a tiny chirp, barely louder than a breath. Then he noticed something else. Near the far wall, just above the baseboard, the air was shimmering. It looked like heat rising off summer pavement, only the room was cold. As Daniel watched, the shimmer faded, thinned, and vanished. The air snapped back into normal shape. With a faint pop, he felt more than heard. He sat back on his heels. His mouth was dry. His brain was refusing to do the math. He tried talking. His voice came out rough. He said, "Hey there," soft and slow, the way he used to talk to stray dogs behind the garage. The creature flinched at the sound. It backed up another inch, wings twitching, small claws digging into the leather of his boot. It watched him the way a drowning animal watches a rope it does not trust. Daniel held up both hands. He told it he was not going to hurt it. He told it he did not even know what it was. He asked it in a quiet voice that felt ridiculous the moment it left his mouth. Where it had come from. The creature just stared. Daniel stood up slowly, backing out of the room, keeping the flashlight low. His hands were shaking now, and he did not understand why. He was not scared. Exactly, he was something else. Something he did not have a word for. He shut the bedroom door behind him. almost leaving a small gap so the thing could get out if it wanted to. Then he walked to the kitchen and stood at the sink for a full minute, staring at the faucet. He opened the fridge. There was half a roasted chicken from 2 nights ago and some water in a plastic jug. He tore off a small piece of chicken, put it on a saucer and filled a shallow bowl with water. He carried both back to the bedroom, pushed the door open with his foot and set them down on the floor. Near the bed frame, he did not look under the bed this time. He felt somehow that staring at it would make it worse. He backed out again and closed the door. The rest of the way in the kitchen, he made himself a sandwich he did not eat. He sat at the table and looked at the ceiling. Outside, the rain was still drifting down, tapping on the window in that slow thinking way. Somewhere in the city, a siren wailed and faded. Daniel's phone buzzed on the counter. A news alert, unexplained energy readings over the Rocky Mountains, military aircraft scrambled, authorities asking the public to stay calm. He put the phone face down. He did not know what was under his bed. He did not know what had torn open the air in his bedroom and dropped it there. He did not know why it had chosen his apartment out of every apartment in every city on the whole continent. He only knew that something small and silver and terrified was hiding in his home, and that whatever had been chasing, it was probably still out there, still looking. Daniel sat in the kitchen for a long time that night, listening to the rain, and did not go to bed. By the third day, Daniel had stopped pretending things were normal. He had called in sick to the garage twice now, something he had not done in almost 4 years. His boss, a big man named Ricky with permanent oil under his fingernails, had grumbled but let it go. Daniel had told him it was the flu. It was the easiest lie. What he could not tell Ricky was that there was a silver creature with gold eyes living under his bed, and that it refused to come out no matter what he did. He had tried everything. The first morning, Daniel had left the bedroom door wide open and gone to sit in the living room, pretending to watch television. He had kept the volume low, turning his head every few minutes to check the hallway. Nothing. The creature did not leave the bed. He had even left the apartment entirely for 2 hours, walking down to the corner store and back in the rain just to see if it would slip out while he was gone. When he returned, the chicken was eaten. The water bowl was half empty, but the creature was still there, curled in the exact same spot on his old work boot. On the second day, he had tried trails, a line of small meat pieces leading from under the bed to the doorway, a soft, folded blanket placed in the hallway. He had even opened the bedroom window, letting cold air pour in, thinking maybe the thing wanted to fly away, back to wherever it had come from. The window stayed open for 6 hours. Nothing flew out. The meat trail went untouched past the third piece. The creature did not move. Now on the fourth night, Daniel lay in his own bed for the first time since this whole strange thing had started. He had been sleeping on the couch, too uneasy to share a room with something he did not understand, but tonight he was tired, bone-deep tired. His shoulders ached from the couch springs, and he had decided, in a sort of numb surrender, that if the creature wanted to hurt him, it would have done so already. He lay on his back, staring at the cracked ceiling, listening. The apartment was quiet. The rain had finally stopped. Somewhere down the block, a dog barked twice and went Silent, Daniel closed his eyes, and for the first time in days he slept. He did not know how long he slept before. Something woke him. It was a warm breath on his forehead. Slow, steady, and smelling faintly of something metallic, like the air after a lightning strike. Daniel did not open his eyes right away. He kept his breathing even. He could feel a weight on the pillow next to his head, small but solid, and he could feel those twin points of warmth like pilot lights watching him. He opened his eyes slowly. The creature was sitting on his pillow, less than a handspan from his face. Its gold eyes caught the faint street light coming through the blinds. Its silver scales glowed softly, and its wings were half folded, trembling as if ready to bolt. It was studying him the way small bird studies a stranger in its garden, carefully, cautiously, but not afraid. Not anymore. Daniel did not move. He barely breathed. The creature tilted its tiny head. It took one step closer, then another. It pressed its warm forehead just for a second against the tip of Daniel's nose. Then in a blur of silver it darted off the pillow, down the side of the bed, and vanished underneath again. Daniel lay in the dark for a long time. After that, heart thudding. He understood something then that he had not wanted to understand. The creature was not trapped. It was not lost. It had been free to leave for days now, and it had chosen again and again to stay here, under his bed, in his apartment, near him. For some reason he could not begin to guess. This small silver thing had decided that Daniel's heart was where it wanted to be. He did not know how to feel about that. The next morning he sat on the floor across the room and talked to it. He felt foolish doing it, but he talked anyway. He told it about his day. He told it about Ricky and the garage. He told it he had no idea what to call it, and that since it hid the way his old neighbor's cat used to hide, he was going to call it Seed, if that was okay. Something under the bed chirped softly. Daniel decided to take that as a yes. Over the next few days, Seed began to come out more, only when Daniel was in the room. Only at night, the creature would creep to the edge of the bed, watch him for long minutes, and sometimes step onto his hand if he held it still on the floor. Its scales were warm to the touch, almost too warm, and the tiny heartbeat inside its chest was fast and steady. Daniel stopped leaving the apartment, except for food runs. On the 6th night his phone buzzed with another news alert. He glanced at it while stirring instant noodles at the stove. The Pentagon had issued a rare, short statement. They were investigating what they called an atmospheric anomaly in the Rocky Mountain region. The statement said there was no danger to the public. Daniel read it twice. He did not believe it. Something was out there, something that had torn a hole in the air in his bedroom and left behind a small silver creature that should not exist. Whatever it was, Daniel had a sinking feeling. It had not given up. It was hunting. It was getting closer, and when it arrived, he would not have the first idea how to stop it. It was the smell that told Daniel something was wrong before he even reached his front door. Burnt metal, sharp and chemical, the kind of smell he knew from the garage when someone brought in a car with a fried wiring harness, except this was stronger, and it was coming from inside his apartment. He stopped in the hallway. His grocery bag dangled from one hand, a carton of milk pressed against his chest. The door to Unit 3B looked wrong. The paint around the lock was bubbled in black, as if someone had taken a blowtorch to The door itself was slightly ajar. Daniel set the grocery bag down on the hallway carpet very slowly. He did not call out. He did not reach for his phone. He pushed the door open with his fingertips. The apartment was destroyed. The couch had been flipped against the wall, cushions torn open. The kitchen table lay on its side. The television screen was cracked in a starburst pattern as if something had been thrown through it. Deep gouges ran down the living room wall, 4 parallel lines, each deeper than his thumb. They were fresh. The plaster dust was still falling. The ozone smell was stronger in here, like the air right before a storm. Daniel did not remember running. He did not remember crossing the living room or turning into the narrow hallway. He only remembered falling to his knees in the bedroom doorway. Breath stopped in his throat, eyes searching the dark under the bed. A tiny silver shape was pressed into the farthest corner behind his boot, shaking so hard its scales were rattling. Its gold eyes were huge. The normal bright shine of them had gone dull, clouded with fear. Daniel reached out with both hands. He did not say anything. He just opened his palms flat on the floor, the way he had done for the past week. Seed did not hesitate this time. Hatchling bolted from under the bed and scrambled up his arm, burying itself inside the collar of his jacket, pressing against the side of his neck. Its small heart was beating so fast. Daniel could feel it against his skin. Frantic vibration. Its claws pricked his shoulder. He did not care. He stood up. His legs felt strange. He walked out of the apartment, past the ruined living room, past the scorched door, and did not stop until he was in his truck with the engine running. He drove without knowing where he was going, just drove, east then south then east again, through streets slick with early evening rain. He ended up at a roadside diner off the highway, one of those all-night places with a flickering neon sign and a parking lot of semi-trucks. He took a booth in the back near the fire exit. Seed was still tucked inside his jacket, perfectly still now, warm against his ribs. Daniel ordered coffee. He did not intend to drink, just to have something on the table. The waitress had barely walked away when a man slid into the booth across from him. The man was middle-aged, gray suit, gray tie, the kind of face you forget 2 seconds after you stop looking at it. His hands were folded on the table. He did not pick up a menu. Daniel's shoulders locked. The man smiled a small, careful smile and told him in a voice pitched low enough not to carry that he did not have to run, not from him at least. He said his name, and it meant nothing to Daniel. He said the name of a government division that Daniel had never heard of, something with an abbreviation that sounded made up. Then he said a word that made Daniel's blood go cold. He used the word hatchling. Daniel did not move. His hand tightened around the coffee cup. The man saw it and raised a palm slowly to show he meant no harm. He told Daniel that whatever had wrecked his apartment was still out there, that it had a name, one that would not mean anything to him, but that for the sake of this conversation, they could call it a void hound. It was a predator, a professional one. It had been sent through a tear in the sky 8 days ago from somewhere very far away, and it had come for one thing, and one thing only. The man nodded very slightly toward Daniel's jacket. Daniel felt Seed tremble against his collarbone. The agent said the hatchling was not from Earth that it should never have. Ended up here that the tear in the Rockies had been an accident, and that the thing hunting it would not stop, would never stop, would turn this city into a crater before it gave up. He offered a deal, quiet official. Hand the creature over tonight, no questions, no charges, no record. The government would take seed somewhere safe, somewhere the Void Hound could not reach. Daniel would go home to a cleaned up apartment and a government check for his trouble, and he would never have to worry about any of this again. Daniel stared at him across the table. For a long time, he thought about the silver creature shaking under his bed. He thought about the forehead pressed against the tip of his nose. He thought about the tiny heartbeat currently pressed against his own. He told the agent he would think about it. The agent nodded as if he had expected that answer. He set a card on the table, stood up, and walked out of the diner. Without looking back, Daniel watched him go. Then he dropped cash on the table, stood up, and left through the fire exit. That night in a motel room 2 towns over, Seed climbed out of his jacket and curled on Daniel's chest as he lay on the bed for the first time in a week. Daniel slept with his arms wrapped around the small, warm, breathing thing that had chosen him, and he knew with a certainty that scared him more than the Void Hound did that he was never handing this creature over to anyone. The wall exploded at 3:14 in the morning. Daniel knew the exact time because the motel's digital clock was the last thing he saw before the room came apart. Numbers glowed red on the nightstand, steady and ordinary, and then they were gone in a storm of drywall and broken glass and a roar that was not any sound a living throat should be able to make. Something had come through the wall, not through the door, through the wall. Daniel was on the floor before he understood he had moved. His ears were ringing, his left shoulder screamed where he had slammed it against the bed frame. Seed was already on his chest, tiny claws digging in, gold eyes blown wide. Daniel grabbed the hatchling and rolled behind the bed just as a long, clawed limb swept through the space where he had been sleeping. He saw it then through a gap in the mattress. The Void Hound was taller than the ceiling allowed, so it was hunched, its shoulders grinding against the cracked plaster above. Its body was wrong in a way Daniel's mind did not want to process. Too many joints in each leg, chest that bent like a part, no nose, no ears, just a wide jaw lined with translucent needles, and 2 flat black eyes that did not reflect the motel light. They absorbed it. Acidic spit dripped from its jaw onto the carpet. The carpet hissed and turned to ash. Daniel did not think. He shoved Seed inside his jacket, ran straight for the broken window, and jumped. It was only the ground floor. He landed wrong on the gravel, pain shooting up his ankle, and half limped, half sprinted to his truck in the motel parking lot behind him. The rest of the wall came down. People in other rooms were screaming. Somewhere a fire alarm started ringing. Too late. Daniel threw himself into the driver's seat, slammed the door, jammed the key into the ignition. The engine roared. He peeled out of the lot as the Void Hound came through the wreckage of the motel like it was made of paper, landing on all fours in the parking lot, and then, impossibly, it began to run after him. It ran on rooftops, on walls, on the sides of buildings. It moved the way nothing with that much mass should move, leaping between streetlights, clearing 30 feet at a bound, its claws leaving glowing scorch marks where they struck. Daniel drove. He did not know where. He took the highway ramp at twice the legal speed and flattened the gas pedal. The truck's engine howled. In his rearview mirror, the void hound was closing, a dark shape against the mountain sky, gaining on him in great silent leaps. Seed was shaking inside his jacket, not trembling now, shaking. The little heartbeat had gone so fast it sounded like a single continuous note. Then Seed screamed. It was not a chirp, it was not a cry, it was a sound that came out of the hatchling like a pressure wave, and the windshield of the truck shattered instantly into 1,000 pieces that sprayed harmlessly past Daniel's face. Every window and every car within 2 blocks burst. Car alarms wailed to life. Along the highway, Daniel felt the sound pass through him, not as noise but as something else. Pulse, a vibration in his bones, in his teeth, in the cab of the truck itself. The engine revved higher on its own. Headlights flared white and then steadied, and Seed scales were glowing, not reflecting, glowing from the inside. A soft molten light that pulsed in time. With its heartbeat so bright Daniel could see it through his jacket, through the fabric, lighting up the cab like a small dying star. Behind him, the void hound stumbled. In the mirror, Daniel saw it miss a rooftop. It slammed into the side of a warehouse and slid down into a dumpster, claws scraping long sparks against the brick. It was up again in seconds, but it was limping now. Its black eyes looked smaller, somehow injured. Daniel did not understand what had just happened. He did not have time to understand. He took the next exit hard, tires screaming. He cut through an industrial zone, killed the headlights, and guided the truck by the weak glow of Seed's scales into a row of abandoned warehouses. He picked the biggest one, an old freight depot with its loading doors hanging open, and drove inside. He rolled the truck behind a wall of rusted shipping containers and killed the engine. The silence afterward was enormous. Daniel sat there, chest heaving, covered in bits of broken glass. His ears were still ringing. His ankle was throbbing. He pulled open his jacket with hands that would not stop shaking. Seed was inside, still glowing faintly, but dimmer now. Its gold eyes were half closed. Its small body was limp, wings drooping. Whatever the hatchling had just done, it had cost it something. Daniel lifted Seed out of his jacket carefully, both hands cupped around the tiny warm body. He could feel that frantic heartbeat slowing. He got out of the truck and sat on the concrete floor, with his back against a shipping container, the hatchling against his chest. In the dark, somewhere in the distance, he heard a long, low, angry cry. The void hound searching. Daniel pressed his forehead down against Seed's silver scales. He whispered the only thing he could think to whisper. He told the hatchling he was not going anywhere. He told it he was not leaving. He told it he was right here, and he would be right here, and that was the end of it. Seed let out the softest chirp, and then, trusting him completely, the hatchling closed its eyes and slept. Dawn came gray through the broken skylights of the warehouse. Daniel had not slept. He sat in the same spot on the concrete floor, back against the rusted shipping container. Seed curled against his chest inside the jacket. The hatchling had stopped glowing somewhere around 4:00 in the morning. Its scales were dull silver again, and its breathing was slow but steady. It was alive, That was all that mattered. Outside, the city was waking up, and it was not doing so quietly. Daniel could hear helicopters, several of them, the heavy, low beat of rotors, circling somewhere over the industrial district. He could hear distant sirens, and then closer, the sound that made his stomach drop, tires on gravel, a convoy of vehicles pulling up outside the warehouse. He did not move. He could not outrun helicopters on foot with a wounded hatchling, and there was no second door to this place that did not lead into open ground. A single pair of footsteps crossed the concrete, slow and unhurried. Flashlight beams swept across the shipping containers, then a familiar voice called out, not unkindly, and asked Daniel to please not do anything stupid. The agent from the diner stepped into view. He was alone in the same gray suit, though now it was rumpled and there was dried blood on his collar. He held his hands out at his sides empty. He told Daniel that there was a full strike team outside. He told Daniel he had argued hard to come in alone first. He told Daniel he had been up for 36 hours, and he was not in the mood for anyone else to die today. Daniel did not stand up. He kept both hands over seed. The agent crouched down about 10 feet away, resting his forearms on his knees. For a long moment he did not speak. He just looked at Daniel, at the torn jacket, at the small silver shape tucked inside it, at the broken glass still in Daniel's hair. Then he told Daniel the truth. He said the hatchling was not just a hatchling. He said the creature's species had a name and a history and a bloodline that went back longer than any human civilization. He said there was a cartel somewhere far out in the stars that had been hunting this particular bloodline for 600 Earth years, exterminating it methodically. They had killed the parents. They had killed the eggs. This one had slipped through dimensional tier at the last possible moment, and it had landed by accident in Daniel's bedroom. The Void Hound, he said, was the first hunter. It had been wounded in the chase last night and was currently being tracked through the city by military drones. It would be put down within the hour, but it was only the first. More were coming. The agent said there was a delegation in orbit right now, not human, not even close to human. They had come in a ship the size of a mountain, and they had transmitted a single demand to every government on Earth: hand over the hatchling and Earth would be left alone. Refuse, and the next hunters they sent would not bother with the hatchling alone. They would burn down whatever stood in their way. The agent's orders were simple: extract the creature, deliver it to the delegation, keep the planet safe. Daniel listened without saying a word. When the agent finished, he asked one question. His voice was quiet, almost steady. He asked what would happen to Seed afterward. The agent did not answer right away. He looked down at his hands, then he looked back up, and his eyes did something Daniel did not expect. They flinched. He said he did not know. He said he had asked and nobody would tell him. He said the delegation had not promised to keep the hatchling alive. He said based on his experience that they probably would not. The warehouse was very quiet. Daniel looked down at Seed. Hatchling was awake now, watching him with those gold eyes, weak still but watching. One small silver paw was resting against Daniel's thumb, curled around it, holding on. Daniel thought about a lot of things in the silence that followed. he thought. About his apartment which was gone, he thought about the motel wall coming down, he thought about the windshield shattering on the highway, he thought about a creature that had fallen through the sky, terrified, and had chosen out of every hiding place in every corner of the planet to hide under the bed of a tired mechanic who had nothing to offer it except a piece of cold chicken and a bowl of water. He thought about the word child. The agent had not used that word, Daniel noticed. Daniel looked up at the agent. He asked him quietly if he had kids. The agent blinked. He said he had two, girl and a boy. He said the girl was 7. Daniel nodded. He sat with that for a moment, then he spoke in the same quiet voice he had used when he first found seat under the bed, the voice he used for frightened things. He said that humanity did not trade children for peace. He said that if the people in orbit wanted the hatchling, they could come down and try to take it themselves. And he said that if the agent was to take seed out of his arms, the agent was going to have to do it the hard way. The agent looked at him for a long time. Then very slowly, the agent reached into his jacket. He pulled out a small radio. He held it up so Daniel could see it. And then, without breaking eye contact, he turned it off and set it on the concrete floor between them. He said just as quietly that he had two kids, that he had been thinking about that all night. And then he asked Daniel what they were going to do. Nobody was ever sure who leaked the video. It was 47 seconds long, shaky, clearly filmed on a phone from inside a government vehicle. It showed a tired-looking man in a gray suit standing outside a warehouse in an industrial part of Denver, saying on camera that the United States had been ordered to hand over a living alien child to a delegation in orbit, and that he was refusing the order. It showed him saying very clearly where the warehouse was. By 9:00 in the morning, the video had been viewed 30 million times. By noon, it had been viewed 600 million. By 2:00 in the afternoon, it was everywhere on Earth that had a working screen. Inside the warehouse, Daniel was feeding seed small pieces of a granola bar from his jacket pocket when they started arriving. He heard the first one pull up and thought it was another military convoy. He tensed, hand cupping protectively over the hatchling, but when he edged to the cracked warehouse window and looked out, he saw a beat-up red pickup truck with a bumper sticker that said veteran. An old man was climbing out of it. He had a thermos in one hand and a folding chair in the other. He walked to the edge of the police tape, unfolded his chair, and sat down facing the warehouse. He did not say anything. He just sat there watching. 10 minutes later, a minivan arrived, then a sedan, then a city bus that was not on any route. Within an hour, the street was jammed with vehicles, and people were still coming in on foot from both directions. A woman with a stroller, 2 teenagers on bikes, nurse still in her scrubs, a man carrying a cardboard sign he had clearly just made that said, "Leave the baby alone." They did not shout, they did not charge the line, they simply gathered shoulder to shoulder, a widening ring of ordinary people around the warehouse, and they stayed. By late afternoon, there were thousands. Inside, the agent stood at the window beside Daniel, looking out at the crowd. His face was doing something complicated. He said in a low voice that he had seen protests before. This was not a protest. He said this was something else. He did not have a word for it. Daniel did not have a word either. High above the atmosphere on a ship the size of a small moon, the delegation was trying to understand what they were looking at. Their scans were clear. The target hatchling was inside the structure. Below, a single adult human male was beside it. Around that building in a perfect unplanned ring were 26,000 humans and growing. No uniforms, no unified command signal, no coordinated military order, just bodies standing between the delegation and its prize. The delegation ran the numbers 3 times. The first calculation assumed the humans had been deployed by their government. That was checked and found false. The United States government had, in fact, been ordering them to disperse for hours. The humans were ignoring those orders. The second calculation assumed the humans had been paid. That was checked and found false. No funds had moved, no incentives had been offered. The third calculation, done with reluctance, assumed the humans were simply choosing to stand there for a creature they did not know, for a species they had never met, for nothing in the cold arithmetic of the delegation's civilization that could possibly profit them. That calculation broke something in the delegation's decision tree. Their protocols had a clean category for enemies. They had a clean category for allies. They had no category at all for a species that would put its own bodies between a stranger's child and a superior force for no gain at random, as if it were the most natural thing in the world to do. The cartel behind the hunt was informed through channels that recovery of the asset would be unacceptably expensive. The cartel, which was many things but not stupid, withdrew its contract. Delegation, which had been sent only to collect, not to conquer, lifted off the ship that had hung over Earth like a second moon for 4 days, simply was not there any more by sunset. Governments around the world did not know what to say, so for a while they did not say anything. Scientists later wrote long papers about the event. Philosophers argued for years. Somewhere, very far away, in a language no human would ever hear, the story of what had happened over Earth was told and retold. And the name of the planet became, in that language, something very close to the phrase they do not sell their children. Earth was not contacted again for a long time after that. When contact did come, many years later, it was cautious, respectful, careful. The galaxy, it turned out, was willing to wait. At dusk, Daniel walked out of the warehouse. The crowd had swollen to the horizon. News drones hovered above it. Helicopters had backed off and were circling quietly now. Every face turned to watch him step into the open air. Seed was perched on his shoulder, wings half spread in the cooling light. The hatchling scales had started glowing again, softly, not from fear this time, but from something else. The gold eyes were bright and clear. The crowd did not cheer. Daniel was grateful for that. Instead, they parted slowly, quietly, a living corridor opening all the way down the street, and Daniel walked through it with the small silver creature on his shoulder and his hands in his pockets. He went home. The apartment was a ruin, but he walked through the door anyway. He went to the bedroom. He sat on the edge of the bed. Seed hopped down from his shoulder, padded across the floor, and slipped back underneath into the old familiar shadow. Daniel left the bedroom door open. Some things, once they choose you, never leave.